The stars twinkled like distant spectators in the vast arena of space, their light reflecting off the massive interstellar coliseum that floated in the neutral territory between three major star systems. The Arena of Valor, as it was known throughout the galaxy, stood as a testament to the progress made by the various species that now shared this corner of the universe. What once would have been settled through devastating wars was now resolved through cultural and physical contests, a civilized approach to establishing hierarchy and forming alliances. Inside the arena, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. Beings from dozens of worlds filled the tiered seating that encircled the central fighting platform. Holographic displays projected close-ups of the combatants for those seated far from the action, while translator devices ensured that everyone could understand the proceedings, regardless of their native tongue. Cairo stood at the entrance to the preparation chambers, his blue eyes taking in the spectacle before him. Though he had only recently joined the interstellar forces, he had heard tales of the arena since childhood. It was one thing to hear stories. It was another entirely to stand here, about to participate in a contest that would be viewed by billions across multiple star systems. First time in the arena, a gravelly voice came from behind him. Kairos turned to see Soren, his trainer, a battle-hardened veteran with scars that told stories of countless conflicts. The older man's weathered face carried a knowing smile. "Is it that obvious?" Kairos asked, running a hand through his short, dark hair. "Everyone's nervous their first time," Soren replied, placing a reassuring hand on Kairos's shoulder. "But remember what I taught you. Physical strength is only one aspect of combat. The mind," he tapped Kairos's forehead, "is often the most powerful weapon." Kairos nodded, drawing in a deep breath to center himself. At 30, Earth years old, he wasn't young by human standards, but in the interstellar forces, he was considered a rookie. His path to this position had been unconventional, originally a strategic analyst rather than a frontline fighter. But his exceptional tactical mind and surprising physical capabilities had earned him this opportunity. A thunderous roar from the audience drew their attention back to the arena. On the central platform, a tall, powerfully built female figure stood triumphant over her fallen opponent. Even from this distance, Kairos could see the disdain on her face as she looked down at the male competitor who was struggling to stand. "Zoraya of the Tassar," Soren muttered. "That's the third opponent she's defeated today." Kairos had heard of the Tassar, a species known for their physical prowess and matriarchal society. The females of their species were particularly formidable, with enhanced strength and reflexes that made them natural warriors. The males, while still impressive by most standards, were considered secondary citizens in their culture. Zoraya raised her arms in victory, her silver-blue skin glistening under the arena lights. Her muscular frame was adorned with intricate markings that designated her rank and achievements. Standing well over 7 feet tall, she towered over most competitors, including the one who now limped away in defeat. Pathetic, her voice boomed through the arena's amplification system. "Is this the best the men of the galaxy can offer? 3 challenges, 3 victories." She turned slowly, addressing the entire audience. "I challenge any male warrior who believes he can stand against me. Prove that men deserve to stand as equals beside the women of the Tassar." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered her boldness, while others murmured in disapproval at her provocative challenge. "She's been doing this for weeks," Soren explained. "It's causing quite the stir among the diplomatic corps. The Tassar are important allies, but Zoraya's constant belittling of male warriors is straining relations." Kairos watched as Zoraya continued to parade around the platform, her posture radiating arrogance. "Has no one defeated her?" "Not yet. She's remarkably skilled, and her physical advantages are significant, but that's not why she wins. What do you mean? Soren gestured toward Zoraya. She gets in their heads. They try to match her strength directly, a game they can't win. They forget strategy in their desperation to prove themselves. Kairos nodded thoughtfully, analyzing Zoraya's movements and bearing. There was something in her stance, a slight favoring of her left side that might not be noticeable to most observers. The tournament committee has been trying to find someone who can compete with her without turning it into a gender conflict. Soren continued, "They've approached me about you." Kairos turned to his mentor in surprise. "Me? I've barely completed my training." "Which is exactly why you're perfect. You haven't developed the ego that many of our veteran fighters have. You won't feel the need to prove yourself in the same way." Before Kairos could respond, a small figure approached them, standing at just over 5 feet, with iridescent skin that shifted colors with her movements. She was immediately recognizable as a Lumidarian, a species known for their diplomatic roles and observational abilities. "Soren," she greeted with a melodic voice. "Is this the human you spoke of?" "Lyra, meet Kairos. Kairos, this is Lyra, an observer for the Galactic Council." Kairos bowed slightly, a gesture of respect recognized across most cultures. "An honor to meet you." Lyra's skin shifted to a warm golden hue, indicating pleasure. "The honor is mine. I've been following your progress since you joined the forces. Your approach to combat is refreshing." Lyra has been tasked with monitoring the situation with Zoraya. Soren explained. "The Council is concerned about the potential diplomatic fallout." "They should be," Lyra said, her tone serious as her skin darkened slightly. "The Tassar hold significant influence in the Orion Arm. If their views on gender superiority spread, it could destabilize several developing alliances." Kairos glanced back at the arena, where Zoraya was still basking in adulation from her supporters. "And you think I can help with this situation?" "We hope so," Lyra replied. "Tomorrow's contest includes a random pairing event. We've arranged for you to be matched with Zoraya." Kairos felt a flutter of apprehension. He had confidence in his abilities, but Zoraya was legendary, and he was still unproven in the arena. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for this." Soren squeezed his shoulder. "You are. Trust me on this. Your strength isn't in raw power, it's in your mind. You see patterns others miss, angles of attack that aren't obvious. Besides," Lyra added, "we're not asking you to humiliate her, just to show that respect should flow both ways, regardless of gender." Kairos took another long look at Zoraya, who was finally exiting the platform to thunderous applause from her supporters. He noticed again that slight imbalance in her movements, the almost imperceptible vulnerability that no one else seemed to see. "All right," he said finally. "I'll do it." "Two." The preparation chamber was silent save for Kairos's measured breathing. He sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, visualizing the coming encounter. In his mind, he saw Zoraya's movements from the previous day, replaying them in slow motion, identifying the patterns, the rhythms, the weaknesses. The door slid open, and Soren entered. "It's almost time. The pairings have been announced." Kairos opened his eyes, and, "It's set. You'll face Zoraya in the third match." Kairos nodded, rising to his feet with fluid grace. "Have there been any changes to the rules?" "Standard combat protocols. Victory by submission, incapacitation, or ring out. No weapons, but natural physical advantages are permitted." "So her superior strength is perfectly legitimate." Soren's mouth twitched into a half-smile. "As is your superior strategic thinking." A soft chime indicated that the first match was about to begin. Kairos moved to the viewing screen to observe the competitors, Understanding how others fought was always valuable, even if he wouldn't be facing them today. "You seem calm," Soren noted. "I am," Kairos replied, somewhat surprised by the truth of it. The nervousness from yesterday had been replaced by a focused determination. "I've been studying her." "And?" "She has a weakness. I'm not sure she's even aware of it." Soren raised an eyebrow. "Care to share?" Kairos shook his head. "I'd rather demonstrate." The first 2 matches passed quickly, standard affairs that didn't reveal anything particularly noteworthy. Then it was time. Kairos stood at the entrance to the arena, breathing deeply, centering himself. "Remember," Soren said beside him, "she'll try to bait you, to make you angry. Don't fall for it." "I won't." The announcer's voice boomed throughout the arena. "Our next match features Zoraya of the Tassar, undefeated champion of 14 consecutive contests, against newcomer Kairos of Earth, representing the interstellar forces." The crowd roared as Kairos stepped onto the platform. Across from him, Zoraya emerged from the opposite entrance, her powerful frame moving with predatory grace. Up close, she was even more imposing, nearly 2 feet taller than him, with muscles that rippled beneath her silver-blue skin. "A human?" Zoraya's voice dripped with disdain. "The committee insults me by sending a fragile Earthborn to challenge me." Kairos remained silent, his face impassive as he took his position. He had expected the taunts and had prepared himself not to react. "Nothing to say. Little man," Zoraya continued, circling him slowly. "Perhaps you already understand the futility of this match." The referee, a neutral AI embodied in a hovering orb, floated between them. "Competitors, this match will follow standard combat protocols. Are you ready?" "I'm ready," Kairos stated calmly. Zoraya smirked. "Let us get this farce over with quickly." "Begin," the AI announced, retreating to the edge of the platform. Zoraya didn't waste any time. She lunged forward with startling speed, aiming a powerful strike at Kairos's head. He ducked under it smoothly, stepping to the side rather than backwards, disrupting her expected trajectory. For several minutes, this pattern continued, Zoraya attacking with increasing ferocity, Kairos evading with calculated movements. He made no offensive moves, which seemed to frustrate her further. "Fight back, coward," she snarled, after a particularly vicious combination failed to connect. The audience was growing restless as well. They had come expecting a spectacle, not a game of avoidance. But Kairos remained patient, studying Zoraya's movements, confirming what he had observed from afar. "Is this how humans fight?" Zoraya taunted, addressing the crowd as much as Kairos. "Perhaps I was wrong. Men aren't weak. They're simply afraid." A section of the crowd laughed, and Kairos saw the flash of satisfaction in Zoraya's eyes. She was playing to her audience, drawing energy from their reaction. Her next attack was even more aggressive, a flurry of strikes that would have overwhelmed most opponents. But Kairos had been waiting for this moment, when her confidence would push her to overextend. As her right arm shot forward in what would have been a devastating blow, he didn't retreat. Instead, he stepped into her attack, ducking under her arm and positioning himself at her left side, the side she had been subtly protecting. With precise timing, he delivered a single, focused strike to a point just below her ribcage on her left flank. It wasn't a powerful blow by most standards, but it didn't need to be. It was perfectly placed to hit the nerve cluster that was uniquely vulnerable in TSAR physiology, a weakness that was well documented but often overlooked because it required such specific targeting. Zoraya's eyes widened in shock as her entire left side seized up. She staggered, off balance for the first time since the match began. Before she could recover, Kairos swept her legs out from under her with a low kick, sending her crashing to the platform floor. The arena fell silent. Zoraya lay immobilized, her face a mask of disbelief. She tried to rise but found her left side temporarily paralyzed by the precise strike. "Submit," Kairos said quietly, standing over her but making no move to press his advantage further. Zoraya's eyes blazed with fury and humiliation. For a moment, it seemed she might refuse, but the reality of her situation was undeniable. "I submit," she finally growled. The AI referee immediately announced, "Victory to Kairos of Earth by submission." The silence broke, replaced by a mixture of cheers, gasps, and confused murmurs. No one had expected the match to end like this, least of all with a human defeating the mighty Zoraya with what appeared to be a single strike. Kairos extended his hand to help Zoraya up, a gesture of respect that was customary after a match. She ignored it, struggling to her feet as feeling gradually returned to her left side. "This isn't over. Human," she hissed, low enough that only he could hear, before stalking off the platform. As Kairos turned to leave, he caught sight of Lyra among the officials at the edge of the arena. The Lumidarian's skin was shifting through a spectrum of colors, indicating complex emotions, but she gave him a slight nod of approval. Soren met him in the exit corridor, a broad smile on his weathered face. "Perfectly executed. You targeted the Tassar neural vulnerability." "It wasn't just that," Kairos replied as they walked. She was already favoring that side. An old injury, perhaps, that never fully healed. It made the weakness more pronounced. "You saw that from watching her yesterday?" Kairos nodded. "She hides it well, but it's there if you know what to look for. She compensates with aggression and intimidation, making opponents so focused on her strength that they never notice the flaw. That's why you were chosen." A melodic voice stated. Lyra approached them, her skin now a calm blue. Most fighters would have tried to match Zoraya's strength or speed. You saw beyond the obvious. "It won't make her any less angry," Kairos observed. "No," Lyra agreed, "but it might make her think, and that's a start." War. The aftermath of the match spread through the arena complex like wildfire. Recordings of the brief but decisive encounter were already being transmitted across star systems, accompanied by commentary and analysis. Kairos found himself the sudden focus of attention, something he had never sought, nor particularly enjoyed. He retreated to his assigned quarters, hoping for some quiet time to decompress. The room was Spartan but comfortable, designed to accommodate various species with adjustable environmental controls and adaptable furnishings. Kairos had just finished a light meal when his door chimed. "Enter," he called, expecting Soren with news about the tournament's progression. Instead, Lyra glided in, her skin shifting through shades of purple and blue. "I hope I'm not disturbing you?" "Not at all," Kairos replied, gesturing to a seat. "Is everything all right?" "That depends on your perspective." Lyra settled onto the offered chair, which adjusted to her smaller frame. "Your victory has caused quite the stir. The Tassar delegation is displeased." "I expected as much. They're claiming the match was rigged, that you were specifically selected to exploit Zoraya's weakness." Kairos frowned. "That's partially true, isn't it? You did arrange for me to be paired with her." "We arranged the pairing, yes, but we didn't know about her specific vulnerability. That was your observation." Lyra's skin rippled with amber tones. "Besides, in a real combat situation, opponents don't announce their strengths and weaknesses beforehand. Identifying and exploiting vulnerabilities is a legitimate tactic." "So what happens now?" "The tournament committee is reviewing the match. They'll almost certainly rule it valid. There were no violations of the combat protocols." Lyra leaned forward slightly. But there's a larger issue at play here. Zoraya has become a symbol for the Tassar, and by extension, for their belief in female superiority. Your victory challenges that narrative. Kairos considered this. He hadn't fully appreciated the political dimensions of his participation. I never intended to make a statement about gender. Intentions rarely matter in politics, Lyra replied with a small smile. Actions and their interpretations are what count. Right now, the Tassar are interpreting your victory as an attack on their cultural values. That seems extreme for a single match. It would be, if it were truly just about one contest. But Zoraya has been using the arena as a platform to promote Tassar ideology. Your victory undermines that platform. Kairos ran a hand through his hair, suddenly feeling the weight of the situation. What would you have me do? Nothing different, Lyra assured him. You fought honorably and won fairly. The ripples from that will settle in time. Her skin shifted to a thoughtful green. But there is something you should know. Zoraya has requested a private meeting with you. This was unexpected. Did she say why? No, but it's unusual enough that the committee granted it. Normally, defeated competitors don't seek out their victors so quickly. Lyra's eyes studied him carefully. You don't have to accept. No, I'll meet with her. Kairos decided. Perhaps there's an opportunity here to build understanding rather than deepen divisions. Lyra's skin brightened. That's precisely what I hoped you would say. The meeting is scheduled for tomorrow morning in the neutral conference room. I'll be present as an observer, but I won't interfere unless necessary. After Lyra departed, Kairos found himself restless. He decided to visit the arena's observation deck, hoping the panoramic view of space might help clear his mind. The deck was largely empty at this hour, most spectators having returned to their accommodations after the day's events. He stood at the massive viewport, gazing out at the stars, when he sensed a presence behind him. Turning, he found himself face to face with Zoraya. Her silver-blue skin seemed duller than it had in the arena, and her posture lacked some of its usual arrogance, but her eyes still burned with intensity. I thought our meeting was tomorrow, Kairos said, maintaining a neutral tone. That is the official meeting, Zoraya replied, her voice lower and less theatrical than it had been during their match. I wanted to see you without the observers and officials present. Kairos nodded, turning back to the viewport but remaining aware of her position. What can I do for you, Zoraya? She moved to stand beside him, also looking out at the stars. How did you know? She asked after a moment of silence. About your weakness? It was visible in your movement patterns. You compensate well, but to a trained eye. Not that, she interrupted. How did you know not to attack my strength directly? Every other opponent tries to match me force for force. You didn't. Kairos considered his answer carefully. There's an old Earth saying, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Sun Tzu, Zoraya said, surprising him. The art of war. We study it on Tassar as well. Then you know that victory doesn't always go to the strongest or fastest. Sometimes it goes to the one who best understands the nature of the conflict. Zoraya was silent for a long moment. On Tassar, females are taught from birth that males are inferior, physically weaker, emotionally unstable, intellectually limited. I have never questioned this teaching, until today. One match doesn't disprove biological differences, Kairos pointed out. Tassar females are objectively stronger than males of your species. That's simply fact. Yet, you, a male of a physically weaker species, defeated me. There was no bitterness in her voice now, only confusion and a hint of curiosity. Because strength isn't everything. Wisdom, strategy, observation. These matter just as much in combat, and perhaps more in life. Zoraya turned to face him fully. These concepts, they conflict with everything I have been taught. New ideas often do. The delegation is pressuring me to protest the match, to claim it was unfair. And what do you think? Zoraya's expression hardened briefly, then softened into something more contemplative. I think I was defeated fairly by a superior opponent. It troubles me to admit this. Truth often does, Kairos said gently. I will see you tomorrow at the official meeting, Zoraya stated, her formal manner returning. This conversation never happened. As she walked away, Kairos couldn't help but feel that something significant had shifted. It wasn't just about a tournament match anymore. It was about challenging deeply held beliefs and the beginning of a possible change. The neutral conference room was designed to put all parties at ease, with adjustable seating and environmental controls that could accommodate a wide range of species. Kairos arrived early, finding Lyra already present, her skin a serene blue. You seem well rested, she observed as he took a seat. I had an interesting encounter last night that helped clarify some things, Kairos replied, deciding not to mention his unofficial meeting with Zoraya. The Tassar delegation will be here shortly, Lyra informed him. They've requested that Soren be present as well, as your official representative. As if on cue, the door slid open, and Soren entered. He gave Kairos a quick nod before taking a seat beside him. Ready for round 2? He asked quietly. Before Kairos could respond, the Tassar delegation arrived. Leading them was a tall, regal-looking female with elaborate markings that indicated a high diplomatic rank. Behind her came Zoraya, looking stoic and composed, along with 2 other Tassar officials. I am Ambassador Kelsa of the Tassar Confederation, the leader announced as they took their seats. We are here to discuss the irregular outcome of yesterday's contest. Lyra's skin flickered briefly with irritation, but her voice remained diplomatic. Ambassador, the Galactic Council recognizes the significance of arena contests in interspecies relations. However, the match between Zoraya and Kairos was conducted according to all established protocols. The protocols may have been followed technically, Kelsa countered, but we believe there was an ethical breach. The human was specifically selected to exploit a physiological vulnerability unique to our species. Soren leaned forward. With respect, Ambassador, identifying and utilizing an opponent's weaknesses is fundamental to combat. Zoraya has defeated numerous opponents by exploiting her superior strength and speed, advantages unique to female Tassar. Was that unethical? Kelsa's eyes narrowed. That is a false equivalence. Strength and speed are visible advantages. The neural vulnerability targeted by the human is not commonly known outside our medical community. Actually, Kairos spoke up. The Tassar physiological profile, including the location of major nerve clusters, is available in the Interstellar Forces database. It's standard knowledge for anyone who completes basic training. Furthermore, Lyra added, her skin now a confident green. Kairos identified an additional weakness, evidence of a previous injury, through observation alone. This demonstrates exceptional skill, not unfair advantage. The ambassador seemed taken aback by this information. She turned to Zoraya with a questioning look. Zoraya straightened in her seat. What they say is true. I sustained an injury 3 cycles ago in the campaign against the Drenthor insurgency. It was treated, but perhaps not as fully as I believed. And you did not report this lingering weakness? Kelsa asked, clearly displeased. I did not consider it significant, Zoraya replied. No opponent had ever exploited it before. Because they were too busy trying to match your strength directly, Kairos observed. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Ambassador Kelsa's expression made it clear she was reassessing the situation. "If I may," Lyra interjected smoothly, "perhaps we can view this as an opportunity rather than a conflict. The arena exists not just for competition, but for cultural exchange and mutual understanding." "What are you suggesting?" Kelsa asked. "A collaborative demonstration," Lyra proposed. "Zoraya and Kairos could present a joint exhibition of combat techniques, highlighting the strengths of their respective approaches. It would show that different methods can be equally valid and worthy of respect." Kairos glanced at Zoraya, trying to gauge her reaction to this proposal. Her face remained impassive, but he detected a subtle shift in her posture, a slight leaning forward that suggested interest. "Such a demonstration would be unprecedented," Kelsa noted, though her tone had lost some of its hostility. "Precisely why it would be valuable," Soren responded. "It would transform what could be viewed as an embarrassment into a pioneering cultural exchange." The ambassador considered this for a long moment. "Zoraya, what is your opinion on this matter?" All eyes turned to the warrior. Zoraya met Kairos's gaze directly, and he saw something new there, not the disdain from before, but a spark of curiosity, perhaps even respect. "I believe it would be instructive," she said carefully, "both for our peoples and for myself." Kelsa seemed surprised by this response, but nodded slowly. "Very well. We will withdraw our protest of the match result and consider this demonstration proposal. The details can be worked out through the proper diplomatic channels." As the meeting concluded and the parties began to disperse, Zoraya approached Kairos. "The demonstration was your idea, wasn't it?" she asked quietly. "Actually, no. Lyra surprised me with that suggestion." "But you approve?" "I do. I think we could both learn something from working together rather than against each other." Zoraya studied him for a moment longer. "Perhaps you are right. Human. Perhaps we can." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. What had started as a simple tournament match had evolved into a major diplomatic initiative. The planned demonstration had expanded into a series of cultural exchanges, with representatives from various species offering perspectives on combat philosophies and training methods. Kairos found himself working closely with Zoraya to develop their joint presentation. Their initial sessions were awkward, marked by lingering tension from their match and the fundamental differences in their approaches. But gradually, a tentative rapport began to form. "Your technique is efficient," Zoraya acknowledged during one practice session. They were in a private training facility, away from the spectators and officials who seemed to constantly hover around them now. "But it lacks power." "And your strikes are powerful," Kairos replied, "but sometimes wasteful of energy." Instead of taking offense, Zoraya considered this. "Show me what you mean." Kairos demonstrated a modified version of one of her combination attacks, maintaining the force but streamlining the movement to conserve energy. Zoraya watched intently, then replicated it with her greater strength, creating an even more effective technique. "Impressive," she admitted. "On Tassar, we focus so much on developing strength that we sometimes overlook efficiency. And in human training, we sometimes become so focused on technique that we neglect to build sufficient power." Kairos countered. "There's value in both approaches." This pattern continued, each showing the other the strengths of their methods, each adopting elements that enhanced their own abilities. It was a true exchange, with neither assuming superiority over the other. Lyra visited occasionally to observe their progress, her skin often shifting to pleased golden tones. "The council is very satisfied with the direction this has taken," she told them after one particularly productive session. Several species that have been hesitant to engage with the Tsar are now expressing interest in diplomatic relations. Because of our training sessions? Kairos asked, surprised. Because you've demonstrated that the Tsar are capable of cultural flexibility, Lyra explained. Many were concerned that their strict gender hierarchy made them unsuitable partners for more egalitarian societies. Zoraya, who had been toweling off after their workout, paused. Our society's structure has served us well for millennia. It is not something we would change lightly. No one is asking you to change your fundamental values, Lyra assured her, only to recognize that other approaches may have merit in their own contexts. Zoraya seemed to struggle with this concept. On Tsar, clarity of hierarchy brings stability. The strong lead, the weak follow. It is simple, effective. But strength takes many forms, Kairos pointed out gently, as our training has shown. Yes, Zoraya admitted reluctantly. That has become increasingly evident. Later, as they were concluding their session, Zoraya approached Kairos with an unexpected question. Your world, Earth. How do your people determine leadership? Kairos considered how best to explain human governance systems. It varies. Some nations use democratic processes where leaders are chosen by the population. Others have hereditary systems, or meritocracies, based on demonstrated abilities. And gender plays no role in these determinations. Historically, it often did. Kairos acknowledged, for much of human history, men dominated leadership positions, but that has changed significantly in recent centuries. Now, ability and character are considered more important than gender in most human societies. Fascinating, Zoraya murmured. And yet, despite this supposed equality, you are physically weaker than your females, are you not? Kairos smiled. Actually, no. In humans, males typically have greater physical strength on average, though there's considerable overlap and many exceptions. Zoraya looked genuinely shocked. Then why would your males ever accept female leadership, if strength determines authority? Because we recognized, through much struggle and social evolution, that physical strength is just one attribute among many. Intelligence, wisdom, compassion, vision. These qualities matter more in leadership than the ability to lift heavy objects or win fights. This is difficult to comprehend, Zoraya admitted. In Tsar physiology, female superiority is an objective fact. Our females are stronger, faster, and by most measures, more intelligent than our males. And that may be a biological reality for your species. Kairos acknowledged, but does that mean males have no valuable contributions to make? No perspectives worth considering? Zoraya fell silent, clearly wrestling with these ideas that challenged her fundamental worldview. Finally, she said, I must meditate on these concepts. Our final demonstration is tomorrow. We should both rest. As she left, Kairos couldn't help but feel that these conversations were having a deeper impact than any physical training they had done. Whether that impact would last beyond their time together remained to be seen. The day of the demonstration arrived with great fanfare. The arena of valor was filled to capacity, with additional spectators watching via holographic transmissions across dozens of star systems. The event had been promoted not just as a sporting exhibition, but as a cultural milestone, a bridge-building exercise between different philosophies of combat and, by extension, of life. Kairos waited in the preparation chamber, performing his usual pre-combat meditation. His mind was clear, focused on the sequences he and Zoraya had practiced. This wasn't a competition but a collaboration, something neither of them had anticipated when they first met as opponents. Soren entered, looking unusually formal in the ceremonial attire of an interstellar forces trainer. "Quite the spectacle they've made of this," he commented, glancing at the monitor showing the packed arena. "Not what we expected when you volunteered me for that match." Kairos agreed with a slight smile. "No, but perhaps something better." Soren's weathered face grew serious. "You've accomplished something significant here. Kairos, regardless of how the demonstration goes, you've opened a door that many thought would remain closed." Zoraya deserves as much credit. She could have remained entrenched in her beliefs, but she chose to engage, to question, to learn. "A rare quality in any species," Soren acknowledged. "Speaking of whom, she asked me to give you this." He handed Kairos a small object, a polished silver-blue stone etched with Tsar symbols. "What is it?" "A token of respect. It's a Tsar tradition to present them to those considered worthy training partners. They're quite rare, usually only exchanged between Tsar warriors." Kairos studied the stone, feeling its smooth weight in his palm. "I don't have anything to give in return. I suspect your willingness to participate in this demonstration is gift enough." Soren replied, "It's almost time. Are you ready?" Kairos nodded, tucking the stone into a secure pocket. "I am." The arena was ablaze with light and sound as Kairos and Zoraya entered from opposite sides. The crowd's reaction was enthusiastic, but tinged with curiosity. No one quite knew what to expect from this unprecedented joint demonstration. They met in the center of the platform, and, in a gesture that caused a ripple of surprise through the audience, clasped forearms in a warrior's greeting of mutual respect. Zoraya's grip was firm, but not crushing, a controlled strength that acknowledged their different physical capabilities. What followed was a carefully choreographed series of exchanges that highlighted both their individual strengths and their newly developed collaborative techniques. They began with separate demonstrations, Zoraya displaying the raw power and aggressive style typical of Tsar combat, Kairos showcasing the precision and efficiency of his human approach. Then they moved into the collaborative portion, where each adopted elements of the other's style. Zoraya performed techniques that emphasized economy of motion and strategic targeting, while Kairos executed moves that maximized the power of his more limited human strength. The audience watched in rapt attention as the demonstration progressed to its final segment, a simulated combat scenario where they fought together against imaginary opponents, their contrasting styles complementing each other perfectly. Where Zoraya provided overwhelming force, Kairos created openings with precise strikes. When Kairos needed to evade a powerful foe, Zoraya's strength provided the perfect cover. As they concluded with a synchronized final stance, the arena erupted in thunderous applause. The message was clear to all who watched. Different approaches could not only coexist, but could strengthen each other when combined with mutual respect and understanding. In the aftermath, as they made their way back to the preparation chambers amid continued acclaim, Zoraya spoke quietly to Kairos. "I have been invited to address the Tsar High Council about this experience." "That's a significant honor," Kairos replied. "What will you tell them?" Zoraya was silent for a moment, considering her words carefully. "I will tell them that strength takes many forms, and that wisdom lies in recognizing value beyond our traditional measures." She paused, then added, "And I will tell them about a human who defeated me with one move, not because he was stronger, but because he was smarter. That might be a difficult message for them to accept." "Change always is," Zoraya acknowledged, "but it is necessary for growth. My people have been stagnant in our beliefs for too long. Perhaps it is time for us to evolve." As they reached the chambers, they found Lyra waiting for them, her skin a brilliant gold that radiated satisfaction. "That was even more successful than we hoped," she told them. "The Galactic Council has already received messages from several systems expressing interest in similar cultural exchanges." "Will you continue with these demonstrations?" Kairos asked Zariah. "For a time," she replied. "But eventually, I must return to Tassar. There is much work to be done there." "What about you, Kairos?" Lyra inquired. "The Council would be interested in having you participate in more of these exchanges." Kairos hadn't given much thought to what would come next. His focus had been entirely on the demonstration and working with Zariah. "I'll need to consult with my commanders in the interstellar forces," he said. "But I would be honored to continue this work if permitted." "I have a feeling they'll be quite amenable," Lyra said with a knowing smile. "This has been a diplomatic triumph as much as a cultural one." As Lyra departed to attend to official matters, Kairos and Zariah found themselves alone. An awkward silence fell between them. Their shared purpose was concluding, and with it, the structure that had defined their relationship. "I noticed you received my token," Zariah finally said, gesturing to the pocket where Kairos had stored the stone. "Yes, thank you. Soren explained its significance." "Did he tell you that they are typically exchanged between equals?" Kairos raised an eyebrow. "No, he didn't mention that part. When I first saw you in the arena, I thought you were beneath me, a weak human male not worthy of consideration." Zariah's silver-blue features softened slightly. "I was wrong. In you, I found not just an equal, but a teacher." "And I in you," Kairos replied sincerely. "Your strength and dedication are remarkable. I've learned as much from you as you have from me." Zariah nodded, seeming pleased with this exchange. "In our culture, we have a saying: the strongest warrior is not the one who never falls, but the one who rises with new wisdom. We have similar proverbs on Earth." Kairos noted, "The ultimate measure of a person is not where they stand in moments of comfort, but where they stand in times of challenge." "Perhaps our peoples are not so different after all," Zariah mused. "Different, yes, but with more common ground than either of us initially recognized." Zariah extended her hand in the human manner of farewell. "Until we meet again, Kairos of Earth." Kairos took her hand, noting how carefully she moderated her grip now compared to their first encounter. "Until then, Zariah of Tassar." 6 months later, Kairos stood on the observation deck of an interstellar forces vessel approaching Tassar space. Following the success of the demonstration, he had been appointed as a special envoy for cultural exchange, traveling to various systems to facilitate understanding between different species. This mission to Tassar was particularly significant. It marked the first time a human male had been officially invited to their homeworld, a direct result of the impact his encounter with Zariah had made on Tassar society. Nervous, Lyra asked, joining him at the viewport. The Lumidarian had become a regular companion on these missions, her diplomatic skills complementing his more practical approach. "A bit," Kairos admitted. "Tassar has been isolated for generations. I'm not sure how welcoming they'll be to an outsider, especially a male one." "You might be surprised," Lyra replied, her skin shifting to an optimistic yellow. "Reports indicate that Zariah's presentations to the High Council have sparked considerable debate. Many younger Tassar are questioning traditional gender roles, and I imagine many are resisting such questions. Of course, change never comes without resistance, but the fact that you were invited at all speaks volumes." As the ship entered orbit around Tassar, Kairos marveled at the planet below. Its surface was predominantly covered by deep purple oceans, with land masses of rich green and silver. The civilization's technological advancement was evident in the orbital structures and the gleaming cities visible even from space. Their shuttle was met at the landing facility by an honor guard of Tessar warriors, all female, as was traditional. But Kairos noted something unusual about their formation. At the center stood Zoraya, and beside her was a male Tessar, bearing the insignia of an advisor, a position typically reserved for females. As Kairos and Lyra disembarked, Zoraya stepped forward. Kairos of Earth, Lyra of Lumidar, welcome to Tessar. The High Council awaits your arrival. It's good to see you again, Zoraya, Kairos replied warmly. You look well. Indeed. There was a new confidence in Zoraya's bearing, not the arrogance of before, but a more centered assurance. Much has changed since we last met, she said. Some of it due to your influence. She gestured to the male Tessar beside her. This is Valen, my bondmate and advisor. He is part of the reason you were invited here. Valen inclined his head respectfully. Your match with Zoraya has become legendary among our people. Kairos of Earth. Many of us have studied the recordings extensively. I hope they've been educational, Kairos replied diplomatically. More than you know, Valen said with a slight smile. For generations, Tessar males accepted their subordinate role without question. Your victory over Zoraya, not through superior strength, but through strategy and observation, has inspired many to reconsider their potential contributions. That was never my intention, Kairos admitted. The most profound changes rarely come from intentional actions, Zoraya observed. They emerge from authentic moments that challenge our deepest assumptions. As they made their way to the transport that would take them to the High Council chambers, Kairos noticed the mix of reactions from the Tessar they passed. Some regarded him with curiosity, others with respect, and a few with barely concealed hostility. Change might be happening, but it clearly wasn't universal or without controversy. The council is divided on the matter of greater equality, Zoraya explained quietly as they traveled. The traditionalists fear that questioning any aspect of our social structure will lead to instability. The progressives argue that we limit our potential by restricting male contributions to menial roles. And where do you stand in this debate? Lyra asked, her skin shifting to an inquisitive blue. I stand for strength, true strength, which comes from utilizing all available resources and perspectives. Zoraya glanced at Valen with what Kairos recognized as affection. My bondmate has insights I would never have considered. Ignoring them out of pride would make me weaker, not stronger. The High Council chambers were imposing, a vast circular room with tiered seating surrounding a central speaking platform. The council members, all female, watched with varying expressions as Kairos and Lyra were presented. Ambassador Kelsa, whom Kairos recognized from their meeting after the match, served as their official introducer. Honored counselors, I present Kairos of Earth and Lyra of Lumidar, representatives of the interstellar forces and the Galactic Council, respectively. The head counselor, an elderly Tessar with elaborate markings that spoke of a lifetime of accomplishments, leaned forward. Kairos of Earth, your name has become quite known among our people. Some would say infamous. Others would say enlightening. What brings you to our world? Kairos stepped onto the speaking platform, feeling the weight of dozens of evaluating gazes. Honored Council, I come in a spirit of learning and exchange. My encounter with Zoraya began as a contest, but evolved into a collaboration that benefited us both. I believe there is much more our peoples can learn from each other. And what could the mighty Tessar possibly learn from humans? One counselor asked skeptically. Your species is physically inferior and developmentally young compared to ours. With respect, Counselor, Kairos replied evenly. Different does not mean inferior. Humans may not match Tassar's strength, but we have developed other attributes to compensate. Our adaptability, creativity, and collaborative approach have allowed us to thrive despite our physical limitations. Another counselor spoke up. Yet you defeated one of our strongest warriors. How do you explain this if not through superior ability? I succeeded not because I was superior to Zoraya in all ways, but because I approached the challenge differently. She expected a direct contest of strength, a battle she would undoubtedly win. Instead, I observed, adapted, and found a path to victory that didn't require matching her power. Murmurs spread through the chamber as the counselors discussed this perspective. Kairos noticed that some seemed intrigued, while others remained skeptical or outright dismissive. This brings us to the heart of the matter, the head counselor stated, bringing the murmurs to a halt. Your victory has sparked dangerous ideas among our males. Some now question their traditional roles, citing your example as proof that physical strength need not determine status. This threatens the stability of our society. Lyra stepped forward, her skin a diplomatic green. If I may address the council, change need not be destabilizing if managed thoughtfully. Many societies across the galaxy have evolved their social structures while maintaining their core values. And what would you suggest, Lumidarian? The head counselor asked. A gradual approach, guided by your wisdom, Lyra replied smoothly. Perhaps beginning with pilot programs that allow qualified males to serve in advisory capacities, as Valen does with Zoraya. This would provide data on the potential benefits while limiting any disruption. The council again erupted in discussion, with clear factions forming around different positions. Kairos remained silent, observing the dynamics at play. This was ultimately a Tassar decision. His role was to offer perspective, not to dictate outcomes. Finally, the head counselor raised her hand for silence. This debate will continue among the council. For now, we extend our hospitality to our visitors. Zoraya, as the one who first bridged our cultures, you will serve as their guide during their stay. As they exited the chambers, Zoraya seemed satisfied with the outcome. That went better than expected. Several key counselors showed interest in Lyra's suggestion. Will it lead to actual change? Kairos asked. Change is already happening, Valen noted. This meeting simply acknowledges what has begun in households and training academies across our world. The question now is whether it will be guided or resisted by our leadership. Over the following days, Kairos was given unprecedented access to Tassar society. He visited training facilities, where he observed both female and male Tassar practicing combat techniques, some clearly influenced by the methods he had demonstrated with Zoraya. He spoke with educators who were rethinking how they taught young Tassar about gender roles. He even addressed a gathering of male Tassar who viewed him with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Throughout it all, Zoraya remained his primary guide and interpreter. Their relationship had evolved from adversaries to reluctant collaborators to something approaching friendship. She was forthright about the challenges facing her society, but also increasingly convinced of the need for change. Before our match, she confided during a quiet moment overlooking one of Tassar's violet oceans. I never questioned our way of life. Female superiority seemed as obvious as the rising of our suns. Now I see it differently. How so? Kairos asked. I see that true strength lies in adaptation and growth, not rigid adherence to tradition. By limiting the contributions of half our population, we've been competing with one arm bound behind our back. That's a significant shift in perspective. Zoraya nodded, and not one that came easily. It required me to admit that I was wrong, something warriors are rarely taught to do. Sometimes the greatest victory is acknowledging defeat, Kairos observed. Indeed. Zoraya turned to face him directly. There is something I haven't told you. The High Council has approved an exchange program. Selected Tisar, both female and male, will join the interstellar forces for training and service. That's remarkable progress. And I will lead the first contingent, Zoraya added, as a symbol of the new direction our society is taking. Kairos couldn't hide his surprise. You're leaving Tisar? Temporarily. To learn, to grow, and to bring back knowledge that will benefit our people. She smiled slightly, and perhaps to challenge a few more preconceptions along the way. On his final day on Tisar, Kairos was invited to a ceremonial combat demonstration at the planet's largest training academy. To his amazement, he found himself seated in a position of honor beside senior Tisar officials, with hundreds of spectators in attendance. The demonstration began traditionally, with female warriors displaying the powerful techniques that had made Tisar fighters legendary throughout the galaxy. But then came a surprise. A mixed group of female and male Tisar performed collaborative sequences similar to those Kairos and Zoraya had pioneered in the arena of valor. As the final sequence concluded, Zoraya stepped onto the central platform. Honored guests, fellow warriors, today we witness not just a demonstration of combat techniques, but a demonstration of evolution. For generations, we Tisar have prided ourselves on our strength, our discipline, our unwavering traditions. These remain our foundation. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the audience before settling on Kairos. But even the strongest foundation can support new structures. Even the most powerful warrior can learn new techniques. 6 cycles ago, I stood in the arena of valor, certain of my superiority, only to be defeated by a human who saw what I could not see. That true strength comes in many forms. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but Zoraya continued. That defeat could have been merely an embarrassment, a moment of personal failure. Instead, it became a catalyst for growth, not just for me, but for our society. Today, as we prepare to join the interstellar forces in greater numbers, we carry with us the pride and power of Tisar tradition, enhanced by new perspectives on what strength truly means. She extended her hand toward Kairos. Would our honored guests join me? Caught off guard, Kairos made his way to the platform, standing beside Zoraya. He felt the familiar disparity in their physical presence, but no longer sensed the condescension that had once accompanied it. Kairos of Earth once defeated me with a single, perfectly placed strike, Zoraya announced, not because he was stronger, but because he was wiser. In that moment, he taught me that victory belongs not to the strongest, but to the most adaptable. She turned to face him directly. And for that lesson, the Tisar owe you a debt of gratitude. To Kairos' astonishment, Zoraya inclined her head in a gesture of respect that, he had learned, was traditionally only offered to acknowledged superiors in Tisar culture. The audience fell silent, witnessing what many would have considered unthinkable just months earlier. When she straightened, Zoraya's eyes held a clear challenge. Of course, should we meet in the arena again, I would not be so easily defeated. I, too, have learned to adapt. Kairos couldn't help but smile. I would expect nothing less. The crowd erupted in approving shouts and applause, a response that seemed to surprise even Zoraya. In that moment, Kairos realized that the change they had started had taken on a life of its own, spreading beyond what either of them could have anticipated or controlled. Later, as he prepared to depart. Lyra joined him on the shuttle platform. Her skin was a satisfied gold. "The Council is extremely pleased with the outcome of this mission," she told him. "What began as a simple tournament match has evolved into a significant diplomatic breakthrough. It's Zoraya who deserves the credit," Kairos insisted. She had the courage to question her own beliefs and to stand against tradition when necessary. "Perhaps," Lyra acknowledged, "but it was your victory, and more importantly, how you handled that victory, that created the opportunity for her courage to emerge." As their shuttle lifted off, Kairos took a final look at the Tassar landscape below. What had once seemed an alien and potentially hostile world now held connections and memories. He thought about Zoraya and the other Tassar, who would soon join the interstellar forces, bringing their strength and gradually evolving perspectives to new challenges. One match, one moment, one decision to approach conflict differently. These small actions had rippled outward, creating changes that no one could have predicted. It was a reminder that in the vast arena of the galaxy, as in combat, the most significant victories often came not from overwhelming force, but from the wisdom to see beyond the obvious and the courage to chart a different path. As the shuttle broke through the atmosphere and headed toward the waiting interstellar vessel, Kairos felt a sense of completion. The mission that had begun unexpectedly in the arena of valor had reached a satisfying conclusion. But like all true journeys of understanding, it wasn't really an ending, just the beginning of a new and more promising chapter in the ongoing story of different peoples learning to respect and value each other's unique strengths.